Welcome to Expert Talks by Kalkine TV. Today's episode features Tyler Holland, the CEO at Entrac. My name's Sage. Smart offices incorporating the energy efficient appliances and the Internet of Things devices are transforming the workplaces of our time, and Entrac provides award-winning PropTech solutions for commercial buildings. It connects occupants with buildings for a better workplace and helps building owners, managers all make buildings more comfortable, sustainable and efficient. This should be an interesting show. So excited to bring you live Tyler Holland, COO at Entrac. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, great to have you join us, Tyler. So let's get started and gain something from your valuable insights. In your opinion, why should managing physical assets be centred on tenants' experience, comfort and sustainability, please?
Well, at the end of the day, it all comes down to productivity and flexibility. No organization can successfully compete without a strong focus on getting the best people and putting them in positions where they can do their best work, either individually or as part of a team. So that could mean something like providing a fancy, quote unquote, fancy office with lots of features and tech that help to attract people to work there. Or it might mean removing little inconveniences like uncomfortable temperatures so that they can focus on work without distractions. Either way, the bar is rising as more and more employers try to enhance the productivity of work in their offices. And it's not enough to just provide a desk under a roof anymore. It's an arms race of sorts. Flexibility is also a key driver. So with a lot of organizations operating in really dynamic environments, especially since the pandemic, whether it's the size and structure of their teams that's changing or the physical location of individual team members from day to day, hour to hour, or am I working from home today? Am I working in the head office? Am I working in a satellite office? And that need for flexibility is driving a shift towards corporate real estate more as a service or a set of services rather than just saying, okay, I give you this office, this space. Instead, you're providing, let's say, access control, you're providing meeting rooms, you're providing really a service. So in that environment, it makes sense for the landlord or the property manager to take more control of office operations, and new technological tools are needed to make that happen. So that's why you've seen the rise in recent years of office or tenant apps that enable rapid onboarding of new occupants with access control, facility booking, temperature control, etc.
Sounds great, and I suppose workplace health and safety also is a major aspect to that, and it's great to hear that your business is helping other corporations and entities to look after their staff and help them stay engaged. Please suggest ways, Tyler, which property owners can move beyond the conventional mindset and begin optimising occupant experiences.
Well, I think the first thing to note is that it's a gradual process. If your business model is very hands-off, with an annual conversation with each tenant about the lease and then the handling of a few occasional complaints, you're probably not going to be able to quickly build a totally service-oriented business. So I would recommend instead looking at existing points of interaction between a landlord and a tenant and working to reduce friction there. So for example, if you handle a lot of temperature related complaints already, tenants calling in and saying it's too hot, it's too cold, then software-based temperature controls might help you to provide that air conditioning service in a more effective and efficient way. What we see is that a lot of property owners are reacting to these new trends by trying to do something big and exciting, and they reach into the tenant's realm and try and handle things that the tenant traditionally handles on their own. And that's, in my view, a mistake, because that puts the landlord in the position of competing with specialists in their realm rather than doing something that only the landlord can do, like handling central air conditioning. And so I think focus on what you're already doing, find ways to do it better, expand bit by bit, and then you can start to become a more service-oriented and more digital type of property manager or landlord.
Great. So would you please elaborate on Entrac's features that help the owners and tenants in a unique way? I mean, you've talked about it a bit. Do you have anything to elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, so let me start with a little overview. We provide occupant-facing software controls for air conditioning and lighting. So the most common application would be a landlord providing tenants with the ability to control their own air conditioning with a mobile app. In many buildings, especially I would say the nicest buildings, the fanciest, most expensive, CBD buildings, do not even provide a thermostat for the occupants. Not for the administrator, not for individual occupants, nothing. It's all centrally controlled. So you have to call them or send an email to get any sort of adjustment. So to me, this is just a huge oversight, and it's something that needs to be corrected. And so that's why we've stepped in and provided that in terms of software controls, because they can use their existing infrastructure and then provide an interface in a convenient way to the tenant rather than going and installing a bunch of thermostats and rewiring things. So that to us has really two key sets of benefits, not to us, to our clients. One is pretty straightforward. It's optimization of the whole process of providing air conditioning to your tenants. You've got energy saving from syncing up the temperature settings with actual occupant activity. So when someone comes in and out of a meeting room, you're now able to adjust the temperature so you're not cooling that meeting room all day long, which is very, very common, even in some of the nicest, newest buildings. You've got improved comfort due to occupant feedback cycles and optimization of temperatures with AI. When you get that interaction, it's kind of like the smart home thermostats that you may have seen in the market. That's now applied to an office setting where it's a little more complicated. And then you have more convenience. You've got no phone calls, you've got quicker responses to any issues, and so you're overall happier with the temperature in your office and the service of providing that. So all that whole set of benefits is really just about improving the provision of air conditioning from both sides, for both the occupant who's sitting in the office as well as the provider who's paying for it and managing that. But the other set of benefits that's more interesting and is starting to grow in the attention of landlords is related to data. So many landlords have already deployed tenant experience apps in the hope that they'll be able to gather data on their tenants so that they can provide better services to them, know what they need, know what they're doing. But typically this is things like, when they go in and out of the lobby, where they eat, where they shop, things like that. But it really stops at the lobby. It doesn't really penetrate into the tenant's doors. So landlords are still missing this key dimension of what is actually happening inside the spaces that they've rented out. So including aircon controls immediately maps all of that data and all that occupant data onto a floor plan, where you can see where people are moving within that facility and understand a lot more about what your tenant is doing. All anonymous, of course, so that you can see, for example, this tenant is 100% occupancy in all their meeting rooms. Well, that now tells me that this tenant may be a risk for moving out to a larger space. Maybe I should start to promote some flex space to them so that I can meet that need, that pain point of theirs, while still keeping them there. So this is something that you wouldn't really think about in connection with aircon, but taking that and mapping it onto existing tenant apps gives you that 2D floor plan kind of layout, that extra dimension to your data.
That's really interesting. So from what you're saying, it almost sounds like, as the middle person, the less the client or the occupant needs to talk to the body corporate or the building owner, the better. Do you ever find instances where they want to discuss things for something positive rather than a problem?
So absolutely. And this is something that you see all across the market, including in things like retail. Routine interactions, people do prefer to have them very often through digital, especially younger people. And by younger, I mean kind of below 40, with using a digital interface. But anytime anything is even slightly wrong or in the other direction, very good, like you said, they want to interact with a person. And so what you do is, by making all of the routine interactions digital, you free up your resources in terms of manpower to go and deal with some of these I would say more nuanced type of interactions. And that becomes a little bit more human, a little bit more enjoyable for everyone involved, because they're going to get better results. You're probably going to hire people who have a higher quality, a little higher EQ, because you've got two people handling these issues rather than a team of six that are, doing really routine type of things like replacing cards.
Right. And so how does the cloud technology help to tie all this in and the innovations take place on Entrack, please?
So for us, we've always taken a minimal hardware approach to our controls. And so that has meant from the start a really strong focus on cloud technology. But it's also meant a really strong focus on integration with other office systems, room booking, access control, things like that. So as the use of technologies to manage offices has increased, you see more and more, for example, outside of meeting rooms, you'll see these booking panels that show the status of the meeting room, and then you can tap on it and book the room for 2 days from now. This has all provided a lot of new data that can be weaved together with our software to provide a more effective solution without redundant hardware. So, for example, in the traditional world of lighting and aircon controls, the sensor is king. And with the development of IoT, those sensors have grown in number and in sophistication. It seems like a no-brainer at first, but there are some problems. So first, it can get very expensive very fast. You're putting a bunch of computer chips all over your office. There's no way that's not going to cost a significant amount. And the second is that you can easily end up with, let's say, a meeting room with 3 occupancy sensors in it. You've got one for the lights, one for the aircon, and one for the room booking system to detect vacancy and open up a slot in the schedule. So at some point, you have to start looking at things holistically and saying, okay, let's use one set of inputs across multiple applications. Let's start to integrate these systems together more effectively. Let's design them to be integrated together so that we can build these systems in a less redundant and more cost-effective way. So we at NTREC really focus on making that work. Instead of showing up and quoting for the supply and install of 1,000 sensors in the ceiling, we say, okay, well, let's look at this problem. How can we bridge your existing access control in the lobby with your existing BMS-based aircon control so that when Mary arrives in the building, the aircon above her desk adjusts to the temperature she likes? You don't need a single sensor for that because the air access control already told you Mary's there. All you need is a software to help you map. Mary sits here. It's this aircon unit. Let's go and set the temperature over there.
That's great. It's so enlightening to hear how intuitive these systems have become. That's fantastic. And we're reaching the end now of your discussion. Thanks for sharing your insights with us. Lastly, can you tell us a bit about the objectives of NTREC for 2022, please?
I would say that 2022 is really about coming out of the pandemic and not really practically looking at what things are going to be like going forward. Not just knee-jerk reactions like it's always going to be work from home, but instead looking at what hybrid working really means. How much are you going to work from home? Who is going to work from home? How are you going to balance some people doing that, some people not? And so I think that it's a unique opportunity for us to jump on a rethink of how work happens in a corporation. The office is a big part of that, but it's not the only part. And we just want to make sure that we as a technology provider are able to jump on this opportunity as companies are rethinking everything and doing innovative projects, building innovative working systems, innovative offices. So for us, we just want to make sure that we're riding that wave and seizing that unique opportunity to jump in there and help build, hopefully, the post-pandemic future of work.
Sounds excellent. And I've worked in a 5-star building before where it's just felt great to be at work. You're energized, and in the buildings that have sustainability as a focus and energy efficiency, it actually just allows you to focus much better as well in your own role. So thanks so much, Tyler, for sharing what you do with us today. We really do appreciate your time and insights.
Thank you very much for having me.
And if you just joined us, we had an interesting interview with Tyler Holland, COO at NTREC. For the full recording, head to Kalkine Media's YouTube channel and keep watching for more of these live expert talks and market-related insights. Till the next episode, stay apprised and invest wise with Kalkine Media.